You know that feeling when you come across a random B-movie line in the dollar bin, or perhaps you were watching a movie review and saw a 2-second clip out of it used for comedic relief, and you don't really expect much from this movie except for some context of that short funny clip, hoping that the rest of the film is as goofy and over the top. Well, this is essentially my experience going into Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin.
Bullshit.
That's pretty much everything that I knew about the game heading into it, and also that it had Final Fantasy somewhere in its name. In my mind, it was a match made in heaven. I mean, Final Fantasy Meme Edition? Sign me up. What could possibly go wrong? Well, many things actually. For example, if the writers decide to tell us a conspiracy theory story with an endless loop of resets and memory loss added into the mix, set in a world that cannot make up its mind whether it wants to be medieval fantasy or futuristic sci-fi. This would make the plot bizarre, but not in a charming tongue-in-cheek way. More like, what in the name of all that sacred is going on here? Oh, wait, they actually did that, right? It's been quite a while since the last time that I was so confused by the game's plot. And I've played some cryptic stuff in my time, so I'm used to many quote-unquote innovations in storytelling and mysteries that unravel themselves the further I play. But this is a whole new level of weird. For almost a third of the game, I still didn't fully comprehend the motivation of the main characters. And this mainly comes from one issue: a lackluster, or dare I say, almost non-existent backstory. Who are these people? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? And why should I care about them? Those were the questions that I had almost till the halfway point of the game. And it's hard for me to bond with characters and feel anything towards them if I don't know their motivation or reason. And that's the biggest issue in Stranger of Paradise. The plot is too ambiguous and secretive. Once everything came together in the last couple of missions, it made a whole lot more sense. But honestly, if it wasn't for the solid gameplay, I wouldn't have made it to the final credits. So, what is the story about? We're dealing with a classic case of amnesia and an attempt to carry out a mission only to realize that your original intentions were different and everything is happening in an isekai setting. There is this fantasy kingdom of Cornelia that seems to be living in peace, but the calamity known as Chaos threatens the very existence of this kingdom. Of course, there is a prophecy that 4 warriors of light will come to the rescue, defeat the fiends, activate 4 magic crystals representing the 4 elements that those fiends were guarding, and kill Chaos with the power of those crystals. That's where the main cast of playable characters comes in, and I think you'll understand my earlier statements better. Here's probably the biggest amount of information that I can give about our heroes. Jack, our main guy, wants to kill Chaos, and that's it. No particular reason why, he kinda just wants to, it's his life goal, I guess. Jed, the talkative one, who used to be a quote-unquote nobody, and he said that himself once. Ash, he's just a chill guy, a chill big guy, that's pretty much it. Later on they're joined by Neon, a girl who has no proper memories of her past, but she turned to darkness, then she joined the group and she also possessed one of the 4 dark crystals, which automatically made her the 4th warrior of light, so that's why she's with the gang. And then we have Sophia, who is another lady that was doing something and sort of remembers some things, so she tags along as she also wants to kill Chaos, I guess. I think you understand the problem here. And I wish I could tell you more about these characters, but this is how they get introduced one by one in the game. They all seem to have a common goal of stopping Chaos at any cost by activating these 4 dark crystals. I mean, of course you get to learn more about them, but the true realization of who they are, why they have no memories of their past, and what exactly they were doing comes way later on in the game. I don't want to retell the whole story and spoil it for you, but I'll try to cram in as much as I can. So, our heroes go about their business of defeating one fiend after another, collecting their dark energy into these crystals to allegedly awaken them, But some things don't go exactly the way they're supposed to, and our heroes get consumed by the darkness, which activates some of their memories. And soon they realize that what they're doing is not the right thing, and will only lead to the destruction of Cornelia, as it turns out to be some kind of a testing ground for a far more superior civilization of Luffyans? Lucifers? Luffy's from One Piece? Luffinians. So, our heroes recollect at least a fair chunk of their memories, and remember that they were plotting with an elf named Astus against the Luffinians, to prevent them from quote-unquote resetting Cornelia, and thus wiping out all of its citizens. This is the basic summary of the story, and it did turn out to be quite intriguing and cool at the end, but I can't help but feel that it could have been so much better if they had given at least some context in the early stages to motivate me to continue playing, as it is a 20+ hour game, mind you. I have no idea who I am, what I'm doing and what's going on plot can work, but only in case you actually establish the rules before throwing the player into action. With Stranger of Paradise, it felt like everyone except me was fully aware of what's up, as the narration seemed to have begun a couple of hours ago when I first saw the characters. You know, like when you walk into the cinema to catch a movie that you were late to, and it turns out you missed like half an hour of it already, and are desperately trying to figure things out as the film continues? Well, that's the kind of vibe I got from the plot of Stranger of Paradise. And once again, I believe that the writers really dropped the ball when they decided to make this game as serious as possible. Overall, it turned out to be a pretty mediocre and pretentious story instead of a ridiculous but memorable acid trip. And there are many examples of good games and movies that tread this fine line between bizarre and serious. Unfortunately, apart from a few corny moments, this is not the case for Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Now, gameplay is where it's at for Stranger of Paradise. I mean, it is a pretty basic hack and slash game with only a couple of attack combinations to use, 2 block types, one for physical and other for magic attacks, and a roll system for evasion. But it has many cool additions in other aspects, like a pretty in-depth class system and gear management, offering an almost endless number of opportunities to tweak the characters to your liking. Every class, or job as they're called in the game, varying from your classic swordsmen and mages to samurais, sages, ninjas, and other unique names, has its own benefits and setbacks, forcing the player to plan out how the party will look like, as not only can you set 2 jobs for Jack, the main hero, but also choose from a variety of jobs for each party member. I found it pretty interesting trying out different builds and seeing what kind of benefits each of them offered. Stranger of Paradise sure has a bit of an MMORPG vibe in this regard, where you can literally lose yourself while browsing through all of the new items that you have obtained and seeing how they affect your stats and job affinity, which offers additional bonuses the higher its value is. Sure, some may find the main gameplay pretty repetitive, with every mission literally having the same structure and final goal. Just run through the level, defeat roughly the same pack of enemies with a few new additions here and there, which to be honest is a bit disappointing considering how many different locations were shown in the game. Then you gather new gear, level up at the checkpoints, get to the end of the level, and fight some boss. But curiously, I didn't find this to be a real deal breaker, as the core mechanics were well done. So this only came as a slight annoyance that I have to fight practically the same enemies for 20 hours in a row. If you've played your fair share of RPGs, you're pretty much used to this concept, so no biggie. Once you get into the flow of parrying, consuming magic projectiles and decreasing the enemy's break bar, which is essentially a block meter that you can break for an instant kill, and lashing out impressive looking moves and spells, you'll forget that you're fighting the exact same lion wolf thing for the 20th time, in a completely different location. The quick kill animations are stellar too. I mean, I could make a separate compilation with just these executions, they're so good. In terms of visuals and audio, Stranger of Paradise is an alright game, I guess. I mean, the soundtrack is solid and has some really nice, memorable tunes, especially the hub music and the main theme. Now, in terms of graphics, it's more of a mixed bag, as it's pretty inconsistent in every way imaginable. At times the game is simply gorgeous with really great color choices, adding a ton of personality to locations. Couple this with nice looking particle and different lighting effects from the magic spells, and you get a great picture. But then there are times when Stranger of Paradise looks pretty dull, and more like a PS3 era game than the current gen product. And the unstable frame rate even on the PS5 with the choice to either go for fidelity or performance doesn't really help. In fidelity mode, the game targets 60 frames per second with variable upscaling to a 4K resolution, but in some intense scenes the frame rate definitely dipped into the low 40s or maybe even 30s, with some of the scenes looking outright poor on the big screen. I guess your perception of the game's performance would depend on how you're playing it and on what hardware. That's just my experience on the console. Once again, nothing too serious, but does leave a sore aftertaste. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a game that could have been so much more than just another run-of-the-mill action RPG with an early 2010s vibe. I really hope that I would be playing a memed out version of Final Fantasy, and it definitely had the potential with some of the characters being pretty comedic and completely misplaced in the world of Cornelia. Instead I got a pseudo-intellectual story shrouded in mystery for the sake of mystery, and an overcomplicated plot which is actually pretty simple at the core of it. And it's a real shame as the rest of the game is really good, and I had my fun running through the many fantastic locations, beating hordes of enemies in search for better loot. It definitely has that Diablo-esque charm to it in this regard. But it did make me feel that Square Enix stuck the Final Fantasy name to it entirely for brand recognition purposes. Otherwise I'm afraid even less people would have decided to purchase this game. And while Stranger of Paradise is not really a Final Fantasy game in its traditional sense, it is truly something different. At times questionable, not for everybody, weird, but different. And that's what sets it apart. If you see this game selling for a reasonable price and want to play something other than a regular Final Fantasy game, be sure to give it a try. Perhaps it will be one of your favorite games of 2022. Who knows?